Hi, I'm Marius Moscovici, and I'm joined by Mike Smitherman. And today, we're going to talk to you about BI portals and why they're the missing ingredient in your BI strategy. So we'll talk about that in general, justify why a BI portal is necessary, then talk about what a BI portal does, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who's going to do a demo of Metric Insights. And then, please feel free as you have questions to go ahead and place them in the chat, and we'll go ahead and respond to them as we get them. So let me start off with just a basic statement that your business intelligence environment is likely a mess. Now, when we talk to customers, what they tell us is that maybe 10, 20% of their content in their BI tool environments is actively used by their users. And the rest of it is inactive. And there are things that maybe were built a year ago by somebody who's left the company, or there's duplicates where you've got, one thing that was one particular dashboard and somebody saved it as a slightly different version. And so there's like 2 or 3 or 4 versions of almost the same thing there, where one of them is current and there's old ones. There's all of that kind of mess in the environment. And to kind of give you a sense of sort of why that's particularly bad, I want to kind of give you an analogy. So let's go back in time for a moment to a time not so long ago, before COVID, when we would have dinner parties, right? So when you invite people over to your home to have a dinner party, usually you would kind of tidy up the house, right? So most people will go and say, okay, let me take any clutter that I have sitting around, I'll put it in a drawer, I'll put some things in the closet, maybe I'll put some of my clutter in the garage. And why do you do this? Well, you do it because you want to create a pleasant experience for your guests. You want them to be able to see just things that are functional and things that are beautiful, artwork, photos, things of that nature. No one, I don't believe, in all the history of dinner parties has ever said, my boss is coming over tonight for the dinner party. I really want to impress him. Let me go to the garage and grab a whole bunch of my clutter and bring it into my living room, right? That's never happened. It's never going to happen. It's ludicrous. And yet, that's exactly what you're doing with your BI environment. Right? When somebody comes into your BI environment, your users, they're not presented with the beautiful and functional pieces of content that are really essential for them to do their work. Instead, they're presented with a whole lot of clutter. That 80% of clutter is what they see first before they get to that 20% of content. And that's why the business intelligence environment is a mess. And that particular problem is exacerbated because not only do they have a single tool to work with, but they have SaaS products that they're working with. Now these days, every single business unit can potentially get their own BI tools, or working with their own SaaS technologies. So a business user has to navigate this maze where they go, is this content in Tableau, or is it Power BI or MicroStrategy? Which application do I go in? And then once I get into the application, how do I find it? It's almost an incomprehensible set of options that you've got to navigate to find the content that you want to use. And that creates this impenetrable, this dense barrier for the casual business user. That person who really just wants to consume content in a minute or 2 or 3 of time that they have available. So with that, with all these different analytics and all these different choices and all the different clutter that they experience, users are overwhelmed with how many reports and dashboards they're looking at. And that overwhelm, basically, because of too much content, causes a lack of trust in BI, right? If I have 3 or 4 dashboards and they say almost the same thing, but not exactly, and the numbers don't exactly line up, well, which one do I trust? And how do I know that the number's correct? Well, if I'm presented with that situation, as a business user, I might never come back and look at that dashboard again because I don't know if I can trust it. And when that happens, and it happens across multiple users, then gradually there's lower usage in the environment. People give up and say, well, instead of looking at the data, I'm just going to make a decision based on gut. And then those analytics that so much time and effort has been spent on creating them go underused, underutilized, or not utilized at all. And that, in turn, translates into our very low ROI for the significant investment that you're making in your BI infrastructure. Right? Today, in the post-COVID world, every single organization is looking to their BI team to maximize the return on investment. You know, every budget line item is closely scrutinized. We have customers that have told us that, you know, when they do their budgeting, they zero out their BI spend, and then they have to justify every single piece that gets put in. And I think that's a very common scenario. So in that environment, it's really not possible to make those justifications compelling if you're not getting significant engagement, significant usage across the analytics that are in place. And you can't do that if your BI environment is essentially a mess as far as your users are concerned. So how does the BI portal clean up that mess? Well, there's 4 ways in which the BI portal really addresses these core issues that I just discussed. First of all, it acts as a catalog where everything is in one place. It's a single pane of glass. You can access all of your analytics in one place. Users don't have to care whether it's coming from a SaaS product, which tool it is. Maybe a tool was added yesterday to the environment. They don't really need to know what tool it is. They just need to know that they can find it and access it and consume the analytics. So it becomes a tool agnostic type of experience for them. Second, BI portal allows you to distribute content to your users. So it is not enough to simply put all the content out there, even if you've done a good job of curating and cleaning it up, and expect your users to be able to really engage with all of it. This is because there is a lot of content. Even when you clean things up, there might be 20 dashboards that I, as a user, I'm interested in. If I only have 2 or 3 minutes a day, and I want to spend that day really thoughtfully considering how I'm going to take the information that I'm presented and do something with it, well, then it's really important to present that information to me in as short a period of time as possible. Make it really easy for me. And the way we do that is by distributing that content via email, via Slack, wherever it is that I am. I should be consuming that in such a way that I can immediately get to the content that I'm commonly using every single day. Another important component is that if I have those 20 dashboards, I may not want to look at them every day. Consider for a moment that when you look at a dashboard, if you happen to look at the same dashboard yesterday, that dashboard only provides value to you if it says something different today than it said yesterday. If it's exactly the same trend, if it's fundamentally the same number, it just, you know, the date changed, well, I'm wasting my time looking at it as a business user. But if a number spiked or a number dropped or there's something really significant happening that requires my action, well, that's very important. And so the ability to take the overall universe of analytics that are interesting to a user and then identify or surface just those that have anomalies in them, that's really critical because that drives a much higher level of engagement. Now you're giving me something as a user that I can take immediate action on because it's new, it's interesting information. And then finally, from the BI perspective, from a governance perspective, a BI portal allows you to monitor usage and manage costs around your BI spend. So, you know, all of you as BI leaders will be presented with management coming to you at some point over the next year and asking, hey, we need to justify our spend, right? That's just pretty much universal these days. So you need to have that set of tools whereby you can point and say, look, here is the usage we're getting from the different BI technologies. Here's the use cases that are really generating a lot of value. Here's how what the BI team is working on is really generating significant ROI to the business. And because a portal tracks utilization across all of the different content that's in it, because we know when you create a portal, you identify who's using what content, you know, what use cases are actually succeeding with the users. That gives you the tools to be able to make a compelling and strong justification to your senior management when it comes time to justify your budget. So with that, let's shift gears for a moment, and Mike is going to show you exactly how we implement a portal in Metric Insights and how we accomplish these goals.
Yeah, thanks for that, Marius. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's close this. So as Marius said, I'm going to show you Metric Insights solution to the BI portal, to this engagement issue that Marius spoke about. And so what you're looking at here is the Metric Insights solution. This is our catalog view, if you like. And we're connected out to a bunch of different data sources that Marius was mentioning. So our BI tools, SaaS applications, databases, really anywhere that has content that's going to be interesting to your business users. And through the plugins that we have within Metric Insights, you're able to essentially start publishing content from those different data sources to your users through this portal. And so each of these tiles that you see here in the middle of the screen is linked to a particular data source and a particular piece of content on that data source. So you can see I've got Tableau, Power BI, ClickSense, lots of different applications in one place. And what those plugins allow us to do, if we take an example here, like this Tableau sales analysis dashboard, is when we publish a tile, Metric Insights, if I click on this, picks up a bunch of metadata around what this tile is. So, you know, what it's called, the last time it was updated, and picks up an image of what that tile, what that dashboard looks like as a visual indicator for the users. So this gets refreshed every time the dashboard updates. And if I deem this is something that's interesting for me to look at, I can click through on that tile, and it's going to take me into the live dashboard embedded within our portal. So I get the experience that I would have got if I went to the application directly. But as a user, I can now interact with this dashboard. I didn't have to know that it was in a particular system or a particular technology. All I know is this is my sales analysis dashboard that I want to get access to. By embedding this dashboard in the Metric Insights portal, we can also give a consistent user experience across these different tools. So you'll notice some stuff around the dashboard here. For example, and we'll look at this in detail later, but I can save bookmarks of the common filter values that I go and look at, so I don't have to be slicing and dicing through everything within the view. We can add context to the dashboards. So maybe we want to document release notes and updates or descriptions of what the dashboard is about. And below the dashboard, we have a common collaboration layer that lets users and publishers collaborate around the content and the data, again, regardless of which tool that the dashboard is built in. So by publishing these tiles, whether it's Tableau or if we click on this Power BI tool, I'm giving the users access to content from different systems in a consistent way, in a consistent manner that they can consume this content without having to worry where it exists. Now, it's important that we give the full picture here. So not only can we connect to the BI and analytics tools to publish tiles, there's probably also potentially documents that you want to push out and make available. So we have a PDF document here. We're all still using spreadsheets again. So the ability to publish spreadsheets in a centralized manner as tiles is possible, or even connect to databases themselves and publish tiles using Metric Insights native reporting capabilities and data visualization capabilities. But the idea is that we can, through these plugins, bring together content from multiple systems, organize that in a way that makes sense for your users. So one of the challenges that they have today is that not only do I have to figure out which tool the dashboard exists in that I want to look at, but also how do I navigate the hierarchy of folders or whatever sites or projects that exist in those tools to find it. And it's a different hierarchy within every tool. By having this common category layer on the left-hand side, think of this as almost a file structure for your content. Users can now combine stuff into a single hierarchy for access and more easily navigate through that hierarchy. So we organize the content in categories. We can layer on additional metadata, so we can do things like tag the content to make it easily searchable. We can certify content. So you'll notice some content has a green check mark. So by pushing content through a QA process, checking the data, validating it, we can then certify it so users know that they can trust these dashboards and reports. And ultimately create this catalog or library of content that users can then come and search through, again, regardless of data source, in sort of a Google paradigm where we recommend search terms that are popular within the user base. And if I run that search, it's going across all the content that I have access to in the library, again, regardless of where it came from or where it exists or how it's formatted. And I can see the ranked search results as you would expect in any search engine, in this case, one for your data and your content. So the first step in implementing a portal is organizing the content in this way and publishing the relevant content to your users. Now, let's look at what this might look like from an end user perspective. And I'm just going to open a second browser here where I'm logged in as a different user, Avery. She's actually a sales manager in our demo example here. And immediately you'll see that I've got a different view on essentially the same catalog here. Users are typically restricted to the parts of that hierarchy of categories that we mentioned before. So I'm only going to display the categories that are relevant to Avery in this case. Within those categories, I'm only going to show the tiles that she has access to and permissions to access. I may even just show the slice of data within those tiles as well. So if we have different sales managers for different regions, Avery is responsible for Canada, and let's just show her the Canadian data. And that goes down to the tile level as well. So when she opens that dashboard and that tile that we were looking at before, we can preset those bookmarks that I mentioned so that she is just looking at, or she's directed to the slice of data that she's interested in. You'll notice as well within her portal that we also have these announcements at the top. So there's the ability to add context again at the portal level. So whether it's announcing things from a business perspective around the data, or whether it's updating users in terms of system availability or data uploads, you know, communicating what's happening with the data and what's happening with the systems behind the scenes so that they know, again, what they can focus on, what they can trust is important, and again, bring that confidence back into looking at this data. Now, there's various ways that we can then take the content from this catalog and address the second piece that Marius mentioned, and that's the distribution of content from the portal. So even if we put all this stuff in one place, getting users to come in every day and look at what's important is a challenge, and they don't have the time to do it. So we have various ways of distributing the content. And the first is through this concept of what we call sort of portal pages or landing pages, where we can curate the different pieces of content that are particularly important to a type of user. So if we take Avery as the example, our sales manager here, there's certain content across data sources that she's coming into and looking at every day. So let's make it very easy for her to consume that. In this case, it may be giving her access to our high-level metrics. It may be showing her any exceptions that happened within the data. And it's also pulling together any dashboards that she looks at often, again, possibly across data sources. So in this case, I have a dashboard from Tableau alongside some Power BI content and some native Metric Insights content down the bottom. But by curating this experience for her, maybe making this a start page where she comes to the portal, she can easily consume this content very quickly. If she wants to go and look for other things, she can switch across to the catalog. And the look and feel of these pages can be defined by you. Maybe we're bubbling up metrics for our executive team that are important alongside those announcements. Again, you can curate the experience for your users so it's very easy to consume. Another way, obviously, is distributing content outside of the portal. And there's various ways of doing that. One is sort of this self-service paradigm where users, by dragging tiles or clicking on the star, can add content to a personal favorites folder. In doing that, they get a shortcut to their most commonly used content, but it also instructs Metric Insights to start distributing that content out to them via email. And they may receive something like this, a favorites digest every day, which summarizes what's changing in their world. So it could be, you know, these metrics have changed the most since yesterday. Here's some that generated alerts that we'll talk about in a minute. Or here's some dashboards that updated since they last received this email. And again, using that image capture, showing them an accurate representation of what the dashboard looked like after it updated. And if there's something that they're interested in, they can drill back into that and look at it in more detail. So allowing users to curate the experience and pick and choose at any point in time what's important to them means that we can start pushing that content out to them. Now, another way of pushing content is utilizing the concept of metrics within Metric Insights. So you might have spotted that we have these tiles that have numbers on them. So Metric Insights can pull in your key performance indicators, your high-level metrics into their own tiles, regardless of where that data might be. It might be coming from Tableau or a database. And metrics in our world are the time series data that you want to understand how it's changing over time. So when we pull in metrics, in this case, a daily sales metric, we can segment that by the different dimensions of your business. So in this case, the different regions. We analyze how those metrics are changing over time, looking for highs and lows, computing moving averages, looking at statistical anomalies within the data. And we can start to highlight, you know, unusual values, unusual highs, or unusual lows that we might want to alert users to, or indeed allow them to, or on behalf of them, create their own alert rules to measure things against targets or prior values, to essentially look for exceptions or anomalies in the data that might be interesting. And in doing that, another way of distributing that content is alerting them when we find something unusual. So for example, we find an unusual value with daily sales in Avery's region. Let's send her an email and the related dashboard that metric came from, pre-filtered in this case to her region, so she can get an image of what that looks like. So by using alerts, whether it's sending it to email or the mobile app or SMS or some other tool, Slack or whatever it might be, we can start alerting users to issues within the data again, so that they don't have to come in and analyze this every day. So as Marius mentioned, the final piece of this puzzle, if you like, is being able to create the content that you have within the portal. So once you've created the content in the portal, keeping it relevant and fresh for your users. So Marius talked about the mess that usually exists within BI environments. Well, we want to make sure we're not replicating that mess and we're keeping things fresh and relevant. And so within the portal, if I just go back to our admin view here, we're actually tracking all the usage of all the content, whether it's through the portal or in the application itself, of how users are interacting with this content. And with that, people who are publishing content for the users, so the BI analysts, can actually start to get an indication of what's useful to these users. So you'll see an example here where we're looking at views across the different assets that we're publishing. We can see sort of what's most popular right now, what's increasing in popularity, what's going unused, what's decreasing in popularity, even in terms of user behavior. What are people searching for? What are they finding content for that their searches are related to? What are they searching for that they can't find content for? And even down to a granular level, if I were to take one of these assets that's most popular here and drill into it, I'll just pause this animation for a minute here. What you're looking at here is a view that tells me how people or groups of users are engaging with this content over time. So in the middle, we have the piece of content. We have 1, 30, 60, 90 days out as you go throughout the rings here. And as I play the animation, as users access the content, they come to the middle of the screen. And as users stop accessing it, they sort of drift out to the outside. And so I can see the users who are bobbing in and out, who are getting use out of this. I can see users who are drifting off because they looked at it once and haven't come back in. And by using these usage patterns, I can better understand, what is useful to the users and use that to promote content or retire content that isn't interesting to my audience. And that's a key point. Just because a piece of content is getting unused, maybe it's because people don't know about it and we need to promote it and push it out to them using the distribution that we spoke about before. Or maybe it has just run its course. It was useful in the past. The business has changed. We're measuring things in a slightly different way. Well, let's remove that. Let's retire it and not clutter the portal and confuse users again. So looking at the engagement is important, and as I publish content, understanding what's useful to users, and then looking at it from an underlying system perspective as well. So Marius talked a little bit about ROI for our BI tools and looking at the utilization of those tools. Companies are spending an inordinate amount of money on BI. There's obviously a desire for users to have access to data. But it's not uncommon to see licenses because of the mess that we create for users going unutilized. And so because we're tracking the engagement with that content, we're able to understand, okay, based on what you're paying for your licenses, which users are just not using the tools because they don't find them useful, which users are not getting the full benefit of the license that you're paying for, and what are the potential areas for ROI here? So we have a bunch of users who just aren't using the tool. Is that because it's a training issue? Is that because we're just overwhelming them with content and we need to make sure that we're directing them towards the useful information so that they start to utilize those licenses? Is it just that this tool is wrong for a certain group of users and reality is we should turn it off, we shouldn't pay for it, and we should focus our efforts on finding them a better way to distribute the data that's interesting to them? And are there users where, perhaps we're paying for a license for them to create content, but ultimately they only really consume data and we could downgrade them and save them money there. But running this sort of analysis across your systems, and Marius mentioned it, we have to justify all our spend today. It can show you opportunities where you can increase engagement or save money or increase ROI against those individual tools. So I guess to summarize, again, there's sort of three pillars of this. First thing is organize the content in one place, make it very easy for your users to search through it and not have to understand the dynamics of the underlying tool. Distribute content, whether that's allowing users to self-service or distribute content based on events happening within the data, or alert them to what's happening. And finally, make sure that you're tracking the usage of the content so that you're keeping things relevant and appealing, and make sure that users can engage and focus on what's critical for them to do their job every day. So with that, thanks for listening, and look forward to talking to you again. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.